Thanks for joining us for Horsepower. You may notice that we have set up a little bit differently today since we are in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis. We've decided to conduct our interviews remotely to allow for social distancing as well as the safety of our participants.
I mean, I can see the emotion on your face, and I know it's been a tough time. And I also know that the HBPA's mantra is horsemen helping horsemen. And I think that's really been instrumental. And it's definitely been something that has happened here. And you and members of the staff here, as well as the Charlestown Races and Slots, the people at the Hollywood Casino, especially Eric Zimney. And I know, I mean, we probably have to also mention Jim Miller, president of the Charlestown HBPA, and members of the Racing Commission. I mean, they've all just blended together to make things happen. And speaking of that, I mean, how have things happened to get racing back after the COVID-19?
Well, that again was a very collaborative effort. I'll tell you that from the moment we were shut down, we were working to get open again. It required us to be in constant contact with Governor Justice's office, with the state health department. We actually needed the assistance of the agriculture department. Commissioner of Agriculture was very helpful in getting us to be designated as essential personnel so that we could stay here on the racetrack and take care of the horses during the shutdown. When the casino was shut down, there was some question as to whether or not the racetrack had to be shut down as well. That would have presented a serious problem if we had to have moved. At that point we had about 900 horses on the grounds, and if we had to move 900 horses off the property, you couldn't do that right now. You couldn't just find a spot immediately to place 900 horses. So, as I said, the agriculture department was really very helpful in convincing the state health department that we were essential, and we needed to get our horses out. We needed to get them to be exercised on a daily basis. The other thing we did that was very helpful was we have a retirement plan for backstretch personnel that is actually funded or sponsored, I should say, by the West Virginia Racing Commission. And that plan doesn't have a hardship distribution built into it. And what we decided we needed to do was ask the Racing Commission to make an amendment so that we can have a one-time hardship distribution for the COVID-19. The Racing Commission gave us that approval on April 14th. Darla and I got those letters of information and applications out into the horsemen's hands on April 15th. Deadline was April 30th, and in that short span, we had here in Charlestown 53 applications for assistance or for their funds, because it's actually their money. We had 53 applications, and we distributed $693,000. That was just here in Charlestown. If you added in Mountaineer, that would be another 42 people and another $475,000, which would have been a total of about over $1.1 million that was, put into the horsemen's hands within 2 weeks, because we knew that they needed immediate assistance. They were out of work for 25 days. We didn't race from May 16th, I think it was, March 16th to May 14th. So that's a long time to go with no opportunity for income.
I mean, they're difficult times, and throughout the country, we've seen it. I mean, a lot of racetracks have not fared as well as we have here. What about some of the signature events that we'll be looking at in the future? The Charlestown Classic, Run for the Ribbon, the Oaks, races and events that'll be coming up in the future.
Yeah, so it was unfortunate because we were planned we were scheduled to have the big grade 2 race in April, the Charlestown Classic. It's Hollywood Casino's premier race. It's grade 2. It's just a very big deal. We have another 3 big stakes races. They're all open races. But we also have that day we had scheduled another 4 West Virginia accredited stakes races. We were fortunate enough over time to get those 4 races, those 4 West Virginia accredited races, rescheduled into our regular calendar whenever we opened up in May. So those races have been rescheduled and run, but the 4 big stakes races have been rescheduled for August 28th, and we're looking forward to that. It's unfortunate that at this point, the race for the ribbon hasn't been rescheduled. The race for the ribbon was a big fundraiser for cancer and for breast cancer, and that has not been rescheduled because, with COVID, we can't. There's not a whole lot we can do to have people here on the grounds. I mean, we are now fortunately, we're back to having spectators on the grounds, but it's still not the same. It's not, it's not really convenient to have people mingling when you have to maintain social distancing. So it's unfortunate, like I said, but I'm sure that we'll be looking forward to it next year when they reschedule.
I know the interview is about racing and it's about the Charlestown HBPA, but I mean, you've been a member of the community now for a number of years. I mean, how have you seen the changes just here in Charlestown itself with the COVID-19, and how has it impacted you personally?
It's funny. I live in a townhouse community, and I've seen more people in my neighborhood. I've seen more people probably in the last month than I saw maybe in a year, because people are out now, they're walking, they're trying, even though they're maintaining social distancing. I'm seeing kids skateboarding, and families are riding bikes together. So from that perspective, I think that people have really come together to try and embrace their community and embrace their families. On the other side, I think there are still some people that are experiencing some financial difficulty. We don't see it so much in the horse racing community here in Charlestown, because we try very hard to take care of each other. But horsemen are proud people, and if they need something, they're not really apt to ask for it, and that's unfortunate, because if they come to us, we have an assistance fund as well. We have a medical trust, and we have an assistance fund, and we can provide help to people if they need it, but they have to ask before. We can't just assume that somebody needs something.
No, I think you hit on 2 critical components. So horsemen are proud people, and you guys should be proud of yourselves for the job you've done. I noticed walking back on the backside, we wear masks, we try to practice social distancing. Everyone back there has, tried to fit into the rules and regulations and abide by them. I mean, and at this juncture in time, we have to.
Yeah, Jeff, a lot of people are unhappy about those masks, but that is really and truly, it is a requirement that the state health department has put forth, and we really need to abide by that, as much as people dislike it. It's protection for the horsemen. Nobody likes to be told that they have to do something, but this is something where, not only are you protecting yourself, you're protecting the people that are, that are sitting across from you. Who would have thought that, you and I live in the same city, in the same town, and we can't sit down and talk face to face and do this interview. I never would have imagined that would happen.
I mean, these are extenuating circumstances, and we mentioned this is the new normal. Right. I mean, if it is the new normal, then this is what we'll have to deal with, and if it comes to have live racing and to have to wear a mask, I mean, it's just something we'll have to do. And Once again, I just can't thank you enough for appearing on Horsepower this afternoon. You are the Executive Director of the Charlestown HBPA, the Horsemen's Benevolent and Protective Association. And I must say that nationwide, you do one of the best jobs of anyone in that department. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much.
Good afternoon and welcome to Horsepower. This afternoon we have Jen Royce of the Retired Racehorse Project with us. Jen, if you could just tell us a little bit about the Retired Racehorse Project.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. The Retired Racehorse Project is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to increasing demand for thoroughbreds after racing. So if you think of aftercare as an aspect of the thoroughbred business, just like racing or sales or breeding, the aftercare world is, has a cycle all of its own. And so we help to create demand so that different aftercare organizations that adopt horses out or people that retrain them and sell them after racing have more people wanting those horses. It's easier for them to get them sold or adopted, and it keeps that cycle moving quicker and hopefully more easily.
I know any aftercare program is near and dear to my heart. Love thoroughbred horse racing and love the horses, when they're able to go beyond and have a second career. Could you talk a little bit about West Virginia and their affiliation with the Retired Racehorse Project?
Yeah, well, so with the Retired Racehorse Project, or we always refer to it as RRP. So if I transition between those two things, that's what I'm talking about. One of the things that we do that we're probably best known for to increase demand to promote thoroughbreds after racing is the Thoroughbred Makeover. It's the world's largest competition for retired race horses who are in training, and it's a competition for horses in their first year of retraining after racing. People come from all over the country. They think this past year they came from 41 different states and 4 Canadian provinces, and they acquire horses off of the track and they have 10 months to retrain them. And so West Virginia is one of the top places these horses end up coming from, either West Virginia breds, because the West Virginia program is kind enough to sponsor an award at the Thoroughbred Makeover. So the highest place West Virginia bred ends up getting some extra prize money, which is always fun for anyone. But a lot of the horses who enter this competition come from West Virginia tracks. A lot of times, we look at the racetracks that horses are ending their careers from, and they usually, in the racing world, a horse gets to the claiming level and then they exit the racing industry, and that's how they go on to their next career. And so we get a ton of people getting horses bred in all different states that are coming from West Virginia tracks. So they tend to look at, places like Mountaineer and Charlestown to look for their next show horse or polo pony or lesson horse or just recreational riding horse.
Are there specific criteria that you really look for with RRP? I mean, horses are coming off the racetrack, from a handicap and a journalistic perspective. I mean, I'm looking at horses that probably are high strung, maybe have some idiosyncrasies that, a novice rider wouldn't want. I mean, how do you actually make a determination of those horses you want to keep or you would want to take into the program?
Well, first, let me clarify one thing. It's not us taking these horses off of the track. It's the trainers that are competing in the competition we put on. Those trainers, this year we have about 700 of them almost. Those trainers are looking for different things based on their own riding abilities and preferences, just like we all prefer to drive different types of cars that have different types of feel. Our riders prefer to ride different types of horses, and some might really enjoy a horse that's a little bit more hot-blooded and is more like a sports car. And then other people might look for that kind of steady mount that doesn't get rattled by much. It also depends a lot on conformation. We offer 10 different disciplines at the Thoroughbred Makeover. I'll try to name them all. We offer barrel racing, competitive trail, dressage, eventing, freestyle, which is kind of a conglomeration of anything you want to do with your horse that doesn't fit into one of our other disciplines. Field hunters, we've got polo, we've got hunters like show hunters, show jumpers, and Western like ranch work type stuff. And so people look for different types of horses for those different sports. You know, like a Western rider might want a horse that is, or a polo player, to be honest, might want a horse that's a little bit more square build, maybe looks a little bit more like a quarter horse. Those horses that run short distances, sprinter types, those tend to be great for those kind of people. They also tend to like, you know, if they're a barrel racer or a polo rider, they might like a hot-blooded horse. If they're a polo player, they probably want thoroughbred, not a gelding or a colt. But if they're doing like competitive trail, for example, that's a great outlet for, let's say, a war horse that's run for years. They've seen everything. They don't bat an eye at anything. And to be honest, a lot of times, you know, these horses that have run 60, 70, 80 more times, they have some jewelry coming off of the track. And so they might not have the ability to go onto a second career where they're going to be jumping 3 or 4 feet, but they would be great at competitive trail because that's a slower pace. It's not as hard on their joints and soft tissue, but it requires the horse to be a thoughtful, steady mount for someone. So there's really something for everyone. And I know that's kind of a cliche that you always hear, but there really is. The biggest thing our trainers look for, and really in the equestrian world in general, they want a sound horse that, you know, the lemon hasn't been squeezed dry. These people are willing to pay for a sound. A lot of our competitors are not looking for a free horse off of the track. They are willing to pay some good money for a sound horse. So it's worth sometimes for trainers, if they're thinking about retiring the horse, start putting feelers out there, because there definitely might be someone who would be willing to pay a little bit of money to take this horse and maybe compete at the Thoroughbred Makeover. We offer well over $100,000 in prize money, so it's good incentive for these trainers. But, you know, in the equestrian world, if you can get a nice thoroughbred with a good mind that's been properly restarted and retrained from the racetrack, people can sell them for a good price. So they're willing to pay a good price to get a nice one off of the track.
Well, how long has RRP been in existence? And if I was a trainer at the racetrack and I had a horse that I thought would fit your program, what would be the policy or procedure that I needed to go through to contact you?
That's a great question. We've been around for about 10 years. We've been doing the Thoroughbred Makeover for about 5 years now. And basically, we are happy to work with trainers. If they have a horse or they have a string of horses that they are thinking proactively, when this horse retires and when it's nearing retirement, I want to start thinking about plan Bs and options for those horses. We're always happy to help trainers navigate that. We have really good relationships with a lot of aftercare organizations throughout the country, but also a lot of equestrians who retrain thoroughbreds as part of their business model. So there's a for-profit and nonprofit sector of that. We're happy to connect trainers with people who can kind of be a source for them to find second careers for these horses. Another thing that might be interesting for trainers and horsemen who have race horses, we have an online classified section on our website. So on retiredracehorseproject.org, people can list their horses that are coming off of the racetrack if they want to make them available for sale. Some people, if they have a horse with an injury that, let's say it's going to take several months of rehabilitation, or maybe it's a very difficult horse and isn't going to be the right horse for a lot of riders, but might be the right one for some, people will offer that horse for free with a contract. We also have a contract, speaking of which, that we can give to any trainer if they are rehoming a horse off of the track, even if they're giving it away for free or if they're obviously selling it for money. It's always good to protect both parties, and especially the horse, to rehome that horse with a contract. And we have one that they can use. They can either contact us or they can download it directly from our website. But that always gives people a good peace of mind that, you know, it's a contract that has basic language about the horse never being allowed to go to slaughter. The trainer has to be notified if the horse is rehomed. It doesn't prevent the horse from being resold, but they have to be notified about change of ownership, things like that. Also, that the horse is being sold as is, so that if something comes up down the road, that person can't come back to the trainer and, you know, say it was something that wasn't disclosed.
And, you know, we've conducted a lot of interviews with numerous elements in the thoroughbred industry. And I know the COVID-19 has just been devastating, and yet we've heard some miraculous stories of how people have helped one another. Has the coronavirus impacted your RRP program at all?
The coronavirus is far-reaching, isn't it? We unfortunately did have to announce this week that we have to postpone the Thoroughbred Makeover this year. Typically, we hold that event in October in Lexington, Kentucky at the Kentucky Horse Park, which is a world-class equestrian venue. This year, there's just so many challenges that's presented. Like, you know, with all these stay-at-home orders and shelter in place, a lot of people were not able to get to their boarding facilities to see and work with their horses, or even if they were, in most states, you weren't allowed to have equestrian competitions. So they couldn't get these horses they were trying to transition from the racetrack out to horse shows and just expose them to different environments, which is a key part of retraining a thoroughbred to be a show horse. So another thing they mentioned is they couldn't, in a lot of states, do the typical elective procedures that they would do. You know, if their horse needs injections, or if it needs a chip removed, if it needs chiropractic work or MagnaWave or anything like that. In a lot of places, they couldn't do that between March and June. So it really put them behind on their training. And then in addition to that, you know, everyone's been hit by this. It's not just us as a nonprofit, a lot of our sponsors have too. So our sponsors' budgets have been significantly impacted. They weren't going to be able to support us in the way they wanted to, understandably so. And at the same time, to implement all of these COVID risk management guidelines that Kentucky and the horse park itself require costs a lot of money. It costs, you know, between $15,000 and $20,000 extra in a year that we have less money. So our big concern was to preserve the opportunities for the 650 to 700 people who are taking horses off of the track this year to compete at this competition. So we didn't cancel, we postponed it until next year. And that gives us the best shot at giving people the event that they're used to, something that has a lot of educational components. We do a lot of clinics at that event. Outside of the competition itself, we do a lot of seminars, we do a competitor party and networking events, a huge vendor fair with over 100 vendors. So hopefully next year we can offer all of that. And in addition, hopefully that allows us to retain the prize money for the 2020 class and also have a separate pot of prize money for the 2021 class. So we're going to do a mega makeover on October 12th through 17th next year at the Kentucky Horse Park.
That sounds phenomenal. Why not? Anything affiliated with aftercare programs for retired racehorses is just, that's near and dear to my heart. You got to have a huge heart. Is there anything someone, if they just tune in and they're a novice, that they could do to help support you? Is contributions? Do you need, you know, what would be beneficial to the RRP?
Thank you for asking. You know, for us specifically, we do clinics in a normal year. We haven't the last few months, but in a normal non-COVID year, we do clinics around the country teaching people how to retrain thoroughbreds for the equestrian world. Those have been very popular, and they've gotten a lot more people in the equestrian world exposed to thoroughbreds, and we've kind of taken the intimidation factor away. So it's getting more people wanting these horses off of the track. We also publish a magazine 4 times a year called Off Track Thoroughbred Magazine. You can imagine what is in it. So people can subscribe to that magazine. Donations are always greatly appreciated because they help us do those clinics around the country. And we also have now been kind of transitioning to do a lot of virtual content like clinics, webinars, and things like that. So donations are hugely important for that. Or they can go to our website and kind of see everything that we do. And they can also look for resources that we have on our website that are great for owners and trainers if they want to think about what their plan. Everyone probably, in my opinion, should have a plan for their horse before they have to have a plan for their horse at the end of their racing career. My fiance and I own race horses too, and it's just always better to know what our plan is for that horse before we need to know what the plan is for that horse. So we have a ton of resources on our website at retiredracehorseproject.org that help thoroughbred owners and breeders and trainers work through developing a plan that's right for them. And then we also have a lot of content on there too that just showcases the what's and how's behind thoroughbreds after racing.
Well, Jen Reutz, I can't thank you enough for appearing on Horsepower this afternoon. And I think the Retired Racehorse Project is in wonderful hands, and you are doing a great service for the industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
It's a West Virginia classic, the Golf Tournament, the Gala, and the state's top thoroughbreds vying for the chance to be named West Virginia's best. The West Virginia Breeders' Classics. Breeding, training, racing. A stable of champions. Taylor Mountain Farm is a proud supporter of Horsepower.